Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
Well, no one likes Urban Meyer.
Before we go any further, though, James, I take it you're okay after all that stuff, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
good. So I can make a joke about it. Is that okay?
No, I prefer you didn't.
I like the way you take us to parts other podcasts don't reach.
Guys, let's go back to a conversation.
What, with those useless on Sunday? Yeah, as you guys know, the tug is the drug.
Crushing the hopes and dreams of every team in every division. Here we go.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry, hold on.
32 super fans.
I couldn't understand a word they were saying.
One PodVader.
You fired up for that, man? Huh?
Every angle of the NFL covered.
We on go time. We still on go.
This is Next Fan Up.
We're live, bro.
Hello and welcome to the penultimate SuperFan Super Mock Draft podcast presented by Next Fan Up. Hey everybody, I'm Jay Soderberg, aka PodVader, and I say penultimate because it's not time for the SuperFan Super Mock Draft. No, that's next week. This week is just filler, I guess. That's how I'm going to call it. Great way to sell the job, huh, guys? I am joined as always by our Thursday regulars. Well, I shouldn't say as always. I'm joined as always by our Eagles superfan, James. Hello, James.
Hey, Pod. Just sitting here trying to, just decipher the points between work ethic and judgment.
And speaking of judgment, a man who perhaps shows poor judgment is our Washington football team superfan, Neil, who decides fishing is more important than, I don't know, topics that you suggested.
Yeah, sorry about that. I did catch a lovely fish on that Friday, the lovely Atlantic salmon. But I would say I always think of James as filler. I mean, that's basically why he's here. And yeah, it's good to be on, and strong start by you there, Jay. Well done.
Yeah, I really hope the Atlantic salmon was worth it. I mean, did you keep it? Did you eat it? Was it good?
Well, as you guys know, the tug is the drug. So it was very good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I didn't eat it because we have a catch and release policy over here in Scotland. So at this time of the year, all the salmon are returned to spawn. So,
warning: joke that will not appear on the podcast.
Oh God! Oh no, Jay!
Oh my God! I had to. It was a
no,
layoff.
You didn't. You really didn't. To.
Well, the podcast listeners didn't hear it. It got edited right out. But for us, we enjoyed ourselves a nice laugh.
Well, I tell you, we certainly cannot.
Another one that the listeners did not hear. nextfanup@gmail.com. The only way you'll hear those jokes, well, you'll probably never hear those jokes. Sorry, folks. But you can email us and see if we'll send them to you. I highly doubt it. You can also tweet us at NFU Podcast or Facebook.com/NFU Podcast. Another great way to keep in touch with us. The Facebook page you'll especially want to keep note of because that is where we will post our Superfan Super Mock Draft when it is done. As I teased, next week is the SuperFan Super Mock Draft, where our superfans will act as the general managers for their teams, making their choices. Our first round, just to pull the curtain back, is almost completely finished. We're at pick 32. Just waiting on Matt, our Tampa Bay Buccaneers superfan, to finalize the first round. It's an interesting draft, I have to say. I don't want to give anything away, but I think there's some things in our mock draft that are actually going to happen on draft night. And I know you disagree.
No, I think. Well, no, I don't really disagree. What I disagree with is what I think more is that this draft is maybe not the most exciting of drafts in general. And what I was disappointed with our draft was that we didn't get Jared trading away 19 future first-round picks to move up after he's traded his entire offensive line away for a cornerback. That's
well, if we do the Zoom call again this year, then I will pretty much be in the same boat that I was last year, having a drink, crying over a player that we skipped over for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping. I haven't looked at it, James. But I'm really hoping you chose the 47th ranked wide receiver again this year.
Oh my gosh.
So get ready, ladies and gentlemen. Strap in because the SuperFan Super Mock Draft is coming to you next week. In the meantime,
what do you mean? Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. Strap in. I mean, are you back to Deshaun Watson again?
Oh God. Edit that out.
No, that one will stay. But we will get to the latest news of the week, which does not include Deshaun Watson in This Week in the NFL yesterday, today.
Things happen in the NFL. That's why there's This Week in the NFL yesterday, today.
The first news is one that touches my heart. It's a very heartwarming story, and it will make me angry because I'm hearing the whispers get louder and louder. But Julien Edleman has announced his retirement. He was recovering from a knee injury, and it appears that he's not going to be able to recover fully. However, I keep hearing more and more whispers that he's trying to pull a Gronk here and head to Tampa Bay. When you retire, typically in the States, you do move to Tampa Bay. But I do not wish to see Julien Edelman wearing pewter and red. That's just not going to be acceptable in my eyes.
First of all, what does Over the Cap say as far as Tampa Bay's situation right now? Considering they've brought back all 22 starters on offense and defense, do they have any room left to sign Julien Edelman? Because the only significant offensive player not brought back is Antonio Brown. They have a crowded receiving room. Where is he going?
Yeah, the Over the Cap has them technically over the cap, $285,000. So you're right.
Oh gosh, wonderful.
Probably not a destination.
Yeah. But you just end up with a situation where Brady is playing for like $50 for the year, and he's under the salary, so they'll manage to free up some money. I think in this particular scenario, Jay, I think you're fairly safe. I think I believe he's eligible for a $2 million payout in terms of injury claim, isn't he, from the NFL? So I think, and that will mean that he won't be able to come back and play. So I do think he's done. But I think it's worth saying, even though you're angst there and worry that he ends up in a Bucs uniform, what an outstanding career from a guy that I guess most of us can probably associate with, because he doesn't really look like a football player, and he's had a fabulous run as a player, and to do that as a sort of guy who's not your prototypical athlete that you see across the NFL. It's been outstanding, and a lot of respect for what he's done on the field. What a great player he's been over the a 7 or 8 year stretch where he was really, really good.
I mean, he's the second leading receiver in New England Patriots history. I mean, they've had some good receivers, but they haven't had receivers that have been with the team for very long. Wes Welker is the all-time leading receiver, and third is Troy Brown. By the way, what do all three of them have in common? They were slot receivers during the Bledsoe-Brady years. Yeah. So,
but the one thing with him is, James, he was a clutch receiver, wasn't he? He didn't have huge seasons, but his catches always seemed to be really important.
Yeah, and when I think of Edelman, I don't think of anything he's done in a regular season. It's more so he makes his mark in a postseason. And, those Super Bowls, that's where he makes his mark as far as his impact on the game. You don't think of him, like I said, as one of the top-tier receivers in the league year in and year out. Very good, great even for the New England Patriots as far as how they ran their offense. But when it came to the postseason, he definitely had to be someone you had to worry about, especially in a close game with the Patriots, because odds are he was making some type of ridiculous catch. I'm pretty sure Falcons fans don't want to remember the Super Bowl catch that he had
28-3
in that game. But definitely a very good player. Speaks volumes as far as his longevity in the game. Just, 34 injuries to your knees, not necessarily a good thing for a wide receiver.
No. And a guy who started as a quarterback, converted to wide receiver in the pros, never played the position previous to the NFL, and also ended up playing a little bit of cornerback, but that's something that the Patriots like to do with their slot receivers. Just ask Troy Brown.
Mm-hmm.
But Julien Edleman, he was one of the good ones. He wore the right number too. He wore Drew Bledsoe's number 11.
How does that impact on your receiving core for this coming year?
Well, it's a big hit.
Is it? Because he only played 5 games last year.
Well, right. And you saw how great the Patriots wide receiver core did last year. What I do think it's a little bit more job security for another one of my favorites, Jacoby Myers, who I put on the all undrafted team, Neil, if you listened to
I saw that,
podcast. Yeah.
Good.
So
you did a good job with that, Jay. Well done.
Jacoby Myers, I think has a little bit more job security, but I also think the Patriots will probably target a wide receiver in the second and third rounds, and they can probably get a pretty good slot receiver in those rounds. I particularly have my eyes on Amari Rodgers as the guy for them to target.
So without giving anything away for the Superfan mock draft, did you draft a quarterback?
I don't know. You're going to have to wait and see.
All right. And in real life, do you think you'll trade up for a quarterback then?
No, we're not trading.
Really?
I do not want to see the Patriots trade up for, let's put it this way. I think there are only 2 quarterbacks in this draft, and I think they are by the name of Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. From everything that I have heard about the other 3, there are way too many question marks to be taking them in the top 5 of the NFL draft. Now, as you pointed out, Neil, this is kind of a I like your way of putting it, non-exciting. I won't call it boring, but it's a non-exciting draft. There's not a lot of sexiness to the players that are going to be drafted. There's a lot of good players that are going to be drafted. They're just not in sexy positions that people are going to get all excited about and make a huge impact right off the bat.
Yeah.
So quarterback, it's that overvalued position, and people get into it. They're like, oh, we got to get a quarterback, got to get a quarterback, got to get a quarterback. But if the guy isn't going to be the next Tom Brady, I don't need to get a quarterback. I don't need to give up a whole bunch of draft capital to get a guy who's maybe going to do a little bit better than Cam Newton.
Okay, so that's completely wrong.
It's not. It's 100% right. Because when you do give up all that draft capital to get a guy that you end up getting rid of in 2 or 3 seasons, you end up shooting yourself in the foot for no apparent reason.
James,
too early to be bashing the Chicago Bears.
I believe it's you shoot yourself in the foot, you shoot yourself in the nose despite your face, something like that.
No, I think you can't shoot yourself in the foot with that argument because you haven't got a leg to stand on in the first place.
Well, there you go. There's that one too.
It's James. I don't know. Where do you start with that, James? I mean, where do you start with that? I
think if I'm a Bears fan, I'm writing an angry email to Jay.
Yeah, I mean,
go right ahead,
James. Yeah, I mean, your issue, Jay, and I fully understand it because we've all seen it for the last 20 years. The last 20 years, you've had the greatest quarterback of all time on your team, and that is obviously extraordinarily fortunate. But also now it's gone. It makes it a bit more complicated because you're not going to get that again. I mean, it's unlikely in your lifetime the Patriots will draft the next all-time greatest quarterback. That just doesn't happen. I mean, but you cannot win consistently in this league without a top-level quarterback, and that's becoming more and more prevalent every single year.
But I can
but you've got to you just got to. It's like the lottery. You just got to keep buying tickets, and eventually you'll win something.
Right. Well, guess what? I'd rather pay a second round or a 5th round lottery ticket than a 1st round lottery ticket. Mm-hmm. In that particular case, you know that's the way that's the way I look at it. Unless I'm going to get Trevor Lawrence. If I'm going to get Trevor Lawrence, then I'm going to keep that 1st round lottery ticket. But if I'm getting Mac Jones, who there are questions about, Justin Fields, who there's questions about, Trey Lance, who there's questions about,
and Zach
frankly,
Wilson,
even Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Frankly, even Zach Wilson. Why am I going to give up the house to go get a guy who might turn out to be okay? Like, I don't I don't need to do that. I'd rather set myself up in a position to succeed. I'd rather set up that guy in a position to succeed. And that's why if we want to take the Patriots out of this conversation, I think what the Jets did is wrong. And I think what the 49ers are planning on doing is wrong. I don't think the Jets should have traded away Sam Darnold. I think they should have used that second pick to get more value and bring in more weapons to help build around a young quarterback who's got experience in the NFL that you can improve upon instead of just starting all over. And I think the 49ers have a guy that is in a similar position. No, to use your evaluation, Neil, Jimmy Garoppolo may not be a quarterback that makes people around him better, but he's a guy that can get the job done with the right weapons around him. And I don't think I don't think any of those four guys that we just mentioned that have question marks are guys that are going to make dudes around them better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and I think your argument is probably fair. When you've got to, what I never like to do is to criticize a team for trading up and taking a chance, because it's like we talked about all the time. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, you're just not going to have a consistently winning organization. So you've got to keep trying. And if teams decide to trade up, I think the 49ers at least have done the one thing that's really going to help any young quarterback, and that is they've got a pretty decent team around him, and that's where you worry for somebody like Wilson and even Lawrence, who you both mentioned and James mentioned there specifically. There are questions around those two guys as much as anybody else. It's only because we know they're going 1 and 2 that all of a sudden we don't start looking at them anymore, and we start picking holes in the guys who we don't know where they're going yet. So it's a tricky one, but I think would I want to try and trade up for a Fields or a Jones or Lance, or would I rather wait into round 2 and go for a Mills or a Mond or a Trask? It's if we all knew the answers to those questions, we'd all be GMs and our teams would be great.
Well, I think I do know the answers, and I could have been a GM for a team, but they all passed. So
no, I remember you did this thing where you tried to GM the Browns, and
I made them significantly better.
And as far as I remember, the NFL decided that you had to sell the team because it was that bad.
No. I made them significantly better. I also love how this conversation on Julien Edleman turned into a conversation about the quarterbacks in the draft. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks. We're going to talk about the Jaguar situation in particular in just a little bit. We'll get to that during our topic of conversation today. But a few more news notes.
Oh,
we got more news notes here. We
I
got
was going
to
to
move
say,
on.
do you know that Shad Khan's got a 100-meter yacht? It's totally black, this yacht, and gold. It's just gorgeous. Wow, man, it's beautiful.
I'm not surprised. But yeah,
what a yacht!
Does it compete with Jerry Jones' yacht?
It's twice Jerry Jones's yacht.
Oh wow!
I mean, it makes Jerry Jones's yacht look like a rowing boat.
Oh, nice! All right, good job. As long as we can make Jerry Jones look as small as possible, I'm all for it. All right. Yeah. Sad news from the NFL, and that is Britt Reid, son of Coach Andy Reid, has been charged with felony DWI in a February crash that happened right before the Super Bowl. It left a young child in considerable condition. This is the story is only going to get worse because it does appear that Britt Reid may have been imbibing on that alcohol at the Chiefs practice facility, which could put the Chiefs in danger for some legal actions here. It's just a terrible story all the way around. But again, this highlights why we say do not drink and drive.
Horrendous story. It's one of those things. There's some crimes, aren't there, that you find difficult to get over. And some crimes you can as individuals we kind of say, well, that crime, I can probably forgive the person for doing this or that or the next thing. But drink driving is one of those things I have a terrible. I just find that really hard to overcome that and sort of forgive somebody for that. It's such a selfish, ridiculous, meaningless act that somebody can do, and then what happens? People can lose their lives, and it's in this particular case, this young kid his life has been altered by the fact that somebody took it upon themselves to be so selfish as to drink and then go behind the wheel of a car, which then becomes just a weapon, and it's just so desperately sad and so desperately annoying. So it makes you so angry.
I'll do you one better. Having been the victim of a drunk driver in a head-on collision a little over 5 years ago, I can tell you that the rage and anger you feel just being able to, I won't even walk away, but I was pinned in the vehicle. So they had to use the jaws of life to cut me out. My friend who was driving the vehicle that we were in at the time broke both his legs. The person who hit us had virtually no injury whatsoever. I mean,
and how often is that the case?
Windshield.
Yeah,
almost all the time.
Her passenger ended up with some broken limbs as well. But it's like you get drunk, get a designated driver. Never feel comfortable enough to I can make it. I'm just a little bit buzzed. Just don't do it. And unfortunately, when the season starts in the fall, the first time we get a major telecast of the Chiefs on CBS and they bring up Reid's family, they're going to talk about the tragedy of Reid's family and not the family that's been impacted by this son's ill decision to get behind the wheel of a vehicle while he was inebriated. So I hope, I hate to see that coming up in the fall, but it's going to happen. It's just the way it is that the media covers this and the broadcasters do. And I would love to say I hope they don't do it, but they will. They'll make this about the tragedy of Reid's family as opposed to the tragedy of the family that his son impacted.
That's so often the case with famous people, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's move on to happier news.
Can I just, before you go any further, though, James, I take it you're okay after all that stuff, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
good. So I can make a joke about it. Is that okay?
No, I prefer you didn't. You was head on with the minivan and almost died.
All right. Okay. All right.
Oh man. All right. Happier things. People got jobs. Oh, it sounds familiar. Giovani Benard wasn't available for very long. Last week we reported that he got cut by the Cincinnati Bengals. This week we get to report he's now a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I don't know where the Buccaneers are finding all this money. According to Over the Cap, they are over the cap. But Giovani Benard
joined. Running back situation in Tampa Bay now.
Well, I'm glad you asked, James. You have Ronald Jones as your lead back. At least that's the guy that they like the most. Leonard Fournette was re-signed. They drafted Keyshawn Vaughn last season. They also had CJ Prosise on the roster. And now Giovani Benard. I don't see how you're going to share the ball with all five of them.
No Shady McCoy anymore.
No, Shady McCoy is gone, and my guess is he's not coming back.
Gotcha.
By the way, I'm currently looking at the R-Lads depth chart, and there are no backup quarterbacks to Tom Brady.
Really?
According to
not even your
R-Lads.
Great American?
Nope, the Great American is not currently listed on the roster. So good luck with that one, Tampa Bay.
So who is Benard? I mean, he's a guy who is probably more of a receiver than a running back these days.
I would say so at this point in his career.
He's always been a decent pass catcher, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he'll add something to the mix. It's hard to argue, isn't it, with what the Bucs have done. Also, aren't they the first team in NFL history to a Super Bowl winning team to bring back all 22 starters?
Yes.
No.
Well, they're one.
No. Who else has done that?
The Patriots have brought 22 starters before after winning the Super Bowl.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they have.
Well, listen, even if they have, it's impressive that the Buccaneers were able to do it
right
now in this environment. So
this day and age, yeah.
Staying in the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons signed themselves a safety, a longtime Patriot, Duron Harmon from Field Yates. as he puts it, quality, dependable veteran. And yeah,
Sounds like James.
That's pretty much how I would describe Duron Harmon. Quality, dependable veteran.
Yeah.
He's not going to be flashy. He's not, but he's going to get the job done. And looking at their depth chart, I see Eric Harris, Jalen Hawkins, and TJ Green on the Falcons depth chart at safety. So there's a position of need for them.
I know when I took Elizabeth out for dinner last week, that's how she described James.
Moving on. Be wary of acquiring Patriots defensive backs. They tend to play well in the Patriots system and not anywhere else.
I believe Duron Harmon was most recently part of the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
I believe Harmon was most recently part of the Lions. So
I think that's
just
right.
saying.
Yeah.
And I guess that's still technically a Patriot system because it was for the rocket scientist, but still,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Browns.
I stand by what I said.
Browns are adding a quote unquote pass rusher as they will give Jadeveon Clowney a 1-year deal worth up to $10 million per source. I believe I saw one of our super fans in the Slack channel say, wow, this guy just keeps stealing money.
This is how you get by on name recognition. We could look at some of the all-time free agency busts where guys got, I won't even say crazy deals, but just deals that made us shake our heads and say, why did you give him that amount of money? And it was solely based on the name and no real production whatsoever, and only to find out the guy's pretty much out of the league. 2 years into said contract.
All right, I need to go back to the 22 starters from the Super Bowl team. So the Buccaneers are the first team to return all 22 starters since 1994, which when the salary cap started. So in the salary cap era, first team to do that. And previously, the last team to return all Week 1 starters of that Super Bowl season were the 1979 Pittsburgh Steelers. And the last team to return the Super Bowl starters the next season were the 1977 Raiders team. So yeah, I accept your apologies there, James. Thanks.
There you go.
Oh, fine. I stand corrected.
Listen,
go on.
The Patriots, though, the Patriots don't really have starters. So I see where the confusion lies, why I didn't step in to correct James. Because the Patriots use everybody. They use all 53 men.
Hold on till I find a bucket to vomit into.
If you want to keep vomiting, another pass rusher, quote unquote, that got signed by the Seahawks this time. Aldon Smith ends up in Seattle. So that should be a big improvement, right?
Yeah, it's is Frank Clark? Is he still with the? He went to the Chiefs, didn't he, Frank Clark?
Mm-hmm.
But they do like a gun wielding pass rusher, don't they, in Seattle?
Aldon Smith is one of those players who's getting by on one great season because people still believe there's hope. That's
right. Quite right.
That he can return to that form, and he's not going to get back to that one great season he had with the Raiders. It's not going to happen.
Primarily because when he played in that San Francisco team, when he had that great season, he was playing with some outstanding players on defense on that team.
But
sorry, Niners, Neil. I apologize.
I think that's all I got here.
That's the second time you've apologized in like 5 minutes.
I know.
Yeah. Pull your socks up.
Try not to make this a habit. The Falcons signed receiver / running back / return specialist Cordero Patterson.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, that's right.
Another team who think they can turn him into a great wide receiver. How many is that? Like, there are 10 teams already.
No, don't they play him at running back now? Ever since the Patriots moved him to running back, now he's a running back.
What? When he came out of college, he was, my God, he was an athlete. That guy was. Fantastic looking player. He's just never done it as a wide receiver. I just don't understand why he's never done it.
There's just certain
I know
eye coordination
don't
things
know how to run
don't work
routes.
out.
Yeah, you're right, James. Yeah.
He's a speed guy, and unfortunately, there's this adage that of course, Madden coined the phrase "speed kills," but you can't just you can't just acquire fast wide receivers right out of college, especially if the guys only ran deep routes. Whether it was overs, unders, corners, posts, or fly routes, and that's all they ran well because they could run away from the defender and the rest of the secondary. That doesn't pan out in the NFL.
If I'm right in thinking, I'm sure the Vikings traded up to get him in the first round, didn't they? So that year, the Vikings picked number 23. They picked Sharif Floyd. Whatever happened to him? Then they picked Xavier Rhodes, who did have a few good years with him, I believe. Yep. And then they traded. Oh no, come on, Jay. I mean, I'm disappointed, Jay. You should know this. They traded back into the first round to number 29, and they drafted Cordarrelle Patterson. And who did they trade up with to get that 29?
Clearly, if you're pointing to me, then it was with the Patriots.
It certainly was.
The Patriots never pick in the bottom 5 of the first round. They always trade out.
There you go. They traded out, and of course the Patriots. Did they win the Super Bowl that year, 2013?
They were picking 29.
No, the full year. But they did. Who did they select with that pick from Minnesota?
I have no idea.
Oh, come on, it's Jamie Collins. Call yourself a Patriots fan. Jeez.
Dude, I can barely remember my name if people don't call me by it every day. I mean, you want me to remember what happened in 2013?
It's Sodi Jayberg.
Oh. Sodi Jayberg. That name sounds familiar.
Well,
I don't think that's true. All right. Let's move on. Let's go back to a conversation our weekend superfans had a couple weeks ago. It was a great conversation. I wanted to expand a little bit upon some of the stuff that they talked about. Obviously, there's hope. Neil, you talk about hope as a football fan, and how hope is basically what gets you killed, especially as a Washington football team superfan. But as we look at these divisions, as we look forward to this coming year and the upcoming draft, there's a lot of hope involved coming up with everybody's team. And I want to look at each division and sort of see, well, whose hope can spring eternal and whose hope can we just squash like a bug? And I think we're going to find we're going to do a lot of squashing because I think it's necessary. So everyone always starts in the East. Should we start in the East or should we go out West? Which way do we want to go? All right. Let's head to the West. And let's talk about the NFC West, shall we? Last season, the NFC West was won by the Seattle Seahawks. And the last place team was the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I think when you look at this upcoming draft, the 49ers are expected to probably draft a quarterback since they spent a lot of capital to move to number 3. We've already had the conversation about how I think that's probably the wrong move by the Niners. But let's say that's what they do. They move up, they pick a quarterback at number 3. Will that be what the 49ers need to get back to number 1 in the West?
Well, you've got to look at it. Okay, let's just take it for granted they're going to take a quarterback, and whichever one it is, it probably doesn't really matter in this conversation. But with their injured players coming back, are they a team who's going to get enough wins from that quarterback position, extra wins from that quarterback position by drafting their number 3? Are they going to get more wins and better play out of that quarterback position than they will do with their existing quarterback group, which is Garoppolo, and then you've got Nick Mullins. So
no, Nate Sudfeld, Josh Rosen, and Josh Johnson.
Well, they're clearly not going to keep all of those guys. And my answer to that would be no. They're not going to win more with the rookie quarterback than they will with Jimmy Garoppolo.
I would agree. So why are they doing it then? Because you're talking about a year is a long time in football, and your roster that you have around this rookie quarterback now may be vastly different in a year's time, with always with salary cap, with injuries, with whatever, and you do wonder if it is a huge risk for the 49ers, and I just don't see them. Also, the draft capital they're giving up is going to come back to haunt them at some point to get up to that number 3 position. So, are they built to win now? Is this what the plan is? Do you think, Jay? And like you say, is that quarterback position change going to make such a huge difference in year one? I'm with you. I don't see it.
My only concern here is the health of this team, which pretty much did more damage to them last year than any one particular player playing badly or well. And I don't think any one particular player, whether playing at an all-pro level or a horrible level, is going to impact this team this much. This team is loaded on both sides of the ball with talent across the board at every single position. I don't think really quarterback makes that big a difference as long as the quarterback is competent. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not a world beater. Yes, he is competent. He is a good quarterback in the NFL. We can have all the discussions about whether his contract warrants that or whatnot, but statistically, he wins a lot more than he loses. What is he, 22-8 over the time that he's played for the 49ers? The only knock is his health. And unfortunately, that took its toll on almost every single position of this team last year. And who knows what they could have done last year if they were healthy, or at least majority healthy for a large part of the season. They probably would have been better than 6-10.
I mean, there were two games out from playoff contention there, James. So are the 2 games better?
If fully healthy, I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
But also taken to another part that no one's really talking about with this team, they have a new defensive coordinator.
I like the way you take us to parts other podcasts don't reach.
Well, no, I think as I look at their roster, that's where their biggest holes are, is on the defensive side of the ball. And as you mentioned, now with a new defensive coordinator in place, I mean, I don't understand why they're not looking in that particular direction, why they feel quarterback is so important at this particular point in time, unless Jimmy's injury is that detrimental that he's never going to be able to play quarterback ever again. Because to me, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to do what they've done. But, I mean, that's John Lynch's job on the line, right? That's Kyle Shanahan's job on the line. At the same token, you got to look at what the Seahawks have done so far. Are the Seahawks, by basically maintaining their roster where they have, are they going to come back to the pack a little bit? And look at what the Rams and the Cardinals have done. And are those teams on the move? I mean, which team do we think will emerge as tops in this particular division this year?
Oh, for me, the Rams.
You like what the Rams have done?
I certainly do.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't believe in the Rams. If nothing else, the swap they made with Detroit at quarterback, I don't see how that improved the position in any way, shape, or form. Getting a guy, despite his veteran experience, hasn't won anything in this league. Is Stafford capable of running this offense? Yes. Does he instill any hope of them doing anything beyond winning a playoff game? No. This defense is going to have to carry the squad for whatever success they're going to have, as long as they haven't figured out quarterback. And apparently they didn't figure that out when they drafted Jared Goff 5 years ago. And it doesn't look like they figured it out by trading for Matthew Stafford, who's got 2, maybe 3 years left.
They've also lost a defensive coordinator, haven't they?
Yes, but they acquired Raheem Morris as their new defensive coordinator.
Yeah, he's pretty good, yeah. I just see the difference between Stafford and Goff as being quite large.
I don't see how. I mean, then you should have kept look, for me, they're the same guy. You might as well stay with Goff, who's younger, who you're going to get more out of down the, as time goes on. If it's a capability standpoint that they think that Stafford is that much better than Goff, then they better invest in the next guy right now, because the backups currently on the roster and still no hope. remember, Stafford had a significant back injury 2 years ago.
That's true. It's true.
Well,
they certainly need 16 games from him. Yeah.
Well, the two guys that I recognize behind Stafford is John Wolford and Devlin Hodges, the duck caller.
Oh, yeah.
And they also have Bryce Perkins. I apologize to the Perkins family. I do not recognize you, Bryce. All right. Well, and I mean, I think the Cardinals are a team to watch. This is the year I believe you need to watch out for the Cardinals.
No,
I do. I think the Cardinals are on the up.
Why?
Yes, they added a bunch of 35-year-olds, but they're quality 35-year-olds.
They started the year
35-year-olds.
Yeah, but they started the year with a quarterback who was 4'10" high, and he finished the season about 3'9". They're going nowhere.
Oh gosh!
I believe you meant he's 3 apples high. I think that's what.
Oh my gosh, he is not a Smurf for starters. and offensively, I will say that they've done everything possible to put weapons around Kyler Murray. The acquisition of James Conner this week does help the running back department. So that they should get a little bit more out of the running game. I have no qualms with the receiving core. Yeah, you can make knocks on A.J. Green. Hopkins is still there. We still don't know if Fitzgerald is going to officially retire this season. He's currently not listed on the roster. Offensive line is solid. It's not great. And, they added some pieces to a defense that showed flashes last year. There's some games pretty much they look like there was no way you're going to score on them, and other games look like a track meet. So they can get a little bit more consistency out of the defense.
I get that, James. I just think if they wanted to add weapons to around Kyler Murray, they should have signed Aldon Smith.
Oh gosh, really?
Oh man! All right.
They were 8-8 last year. They were 8-8. Do you think they're 1 or 2 games better? I don't know if they are.
Yeah, they're a 10-win team. Wow, we scared them silent.
That's right. I mean, I hope you're right, but I just don't see I'm struggling to see where the improvements are. I know you don't sign some big name guys, but often when you sign big name guys, that means that the original teams who made them big names are no longer interested. I don't know. I don't see it. I think the secondary struggles. Linebacking group, I think, struggles. James is right. Defensively, they don't look great.
Well, that's fine, but you still have to remember there's a draft in 2 weeks where they can still add some youth to those 35-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I think the experience blended with the youth and enthusiasm and the athleticism that they'll bring in, I think it's a good mix. I believe the Cardinals have a very good mix in the West. Do I think they'll be the ultimate champion at the end of the day? No. I think the Seahawks are probably still at the top of the division, but I do think the Cardinals are a team to watch in the playoffs.
But you have a bit of a misconception there, Jay. I'm not sure, apart from the occasional rare instance that a draft class makes a huge difference in their first year. I think occasionally you get the odd one that does, but it's not that huge an impact they make, really. I know we love this time of the year and all these great players coming out and all the rest of it, but it's not often one makes a huge difference to a team.
No, that's why I mentioned the blend of the players that they brought in with the players that they should be drafting. I think that the Cardinals will be a team to watch.
But you're going on.
I think the Cardinals will win a division.
You're going on.
Let's put it this way. I'm crushing the hopes and the dreams of the 49ers and the Rams. I believe the Cardinals' hopes and dreams can still spring eternal.
Yeah, that may well be the case, but you can't say, well, we signed a 36-year-old guy and we've brought in a 20-year-old guy, so that makes 56. So actually the average age is 28, so we'll be fine. And that's not really how it works, is it?
All right, let's move to a different division and see how this division works out for us.
Well, hold on. Before you do that, you guys are saying you both went for the Cardinals to win that division? Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm going with the Seahawks to win.
Seahawks, and James
with the Cardinals.
Okay, and I'll go with the Rams. So, that's one to
my
me.
only knock against Jay's pick is we saw the defense last year give up tons of passing yardage, and I'm still not convinced the offensive line can protect Russell Wilson.
Well, that's what we have an NFL draft for. And if they don't draft in those positions, then I will change my pick. Listen, it's way too early for me to decide who's going to win these divisions anyway, because their rosters aren't even complete. But
all I know is Jamal Adams can't lead this team.
No, you could, James, Jay, I would just go with strength of schedule. That's a real time winner.
Oh God.
Yes. Well, and frankly, I did admit that this podcast was filler anyway. So to the AFC West, where we will fill and crush everyone's dreams, because none of the teams are going to beat the Chiefs.
No,
unfortunately. So there's no point. I will say I do think the Chargers are on the up. I think the Chargers have a positive, although I really don't understand their head coach hire, other than he had a cup of coffee on the other side of the stadium.
He has touched Sean McVay's magnificence.
Yeah. And for everyone that was championing the Denver Broncos at the beginning of last season, they're back again this year, and I don't get it. What are people seeing in the Denver Broncos that I'm missing? Because frankly, I don't see it.
Yeah.
You didn't mention the Raiders there, but everybody would probably say the Raiders were slightly disappointing after the previous year when they looked far more encouraging. Would that be fair?
Let's see. Where did I have the Raiders in my preseason predictions? I'll tell you if I was disappointed by the Raiders, because I don't remember my name.
So they finished. Yeah,
apparently my name is Sodi Jberg.
They finished 8-8.
They finished second in the division, but 8-8 was not where we had them.
No,
I actually had them finishing second in the division, but at a 6-10 record. So, so for me, the Raiders are pretty much right where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Jay. They gave up 478 points last year, and that is an absolute killer. I bet that must be one of the worst in the league. Huh?
This just in, you got to score the most points, not the least amount of points. Well, it's up there. The Jaguars allowed 492 points.
Yeah.
And those are the top two.
That's the top two.
Oh,
yeah.
No,
yeah.
Sorry. There's one team that allowed more points. 519.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
By the Detroit Lions.
Sorry.
Well,
sorry.
So much for biting people at the knees and the ankles.
That's right. Jeez, they barely cracked a toenail, did they? Blimmin' heck.
Yeah, that's not good.
Off more than they can chew.
Nicely done.
During this course of free agency, as we look ahead to the draft, is there any hope for any of the other three teams in the AFC West, or should they just roll over for the Kansas City Chiefs? I know they're not going to technically roll over. They're still going to give it their all. They're 110%. But at the end of the day, when we're looking at the division rankings at the end of the 2021 season, it's still going to be the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. I think the battle here is for second place in a possible playoff spot between the Raiders and the Chargers.
Injury is the only thing, isn't it, that can change the situation there.
Let's head to the NFC North, where the Green Bay Packers were the champions of the division last season.
All right, and that's good for that division. So the AFC North.
Those Detroit Lions gave up 519 points.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears or the Vikings or the Lions done anything even close to competing with the Packers? It doesn't seem like it does.
Chicago Bears finally got their quarterback.
Who's that?
Nothing? Okay.
Oh, nothing. Okay. Well, that's good. Who's the Bears quarterback right now? Who did they
Andy
acquire?
Dalton.
The Red Rifle.
Right. Yeah,
he is the starter.
It was such an impactful signing. I completely forgot about it.
But you're right. I think you're absolutely spot on, though, James. Jay, that you look at the Bears, the Vikings, and the Lions, and you think, to a certain extent, they all appear to be in a rebuilding mode.
Well,
but rebuilding for
in a
what?
rebuilding mode, considering all the money they dumped into Kirk Cousins.
Mm.
See, this is when you look at these teams, and so we've done this with the AFC East for years, right? You look at the other three teams and you go, what are you doing? Why have you done literally nothing to compete with the team at the top of your division? Like, why have you not improved your team at all? And I mean, there's all sorts of different reasons why, but at the end of the day, none of these three teams are going to be able to draft anybody that's going to make an impact that will get them to a point where Aaron Rodgers and the Packers aren't crowned the NFC North division champions again.
But remember, Jay, although obviously every team wants to win their division, with the extra wildcard slot now, there is slightly higher chance of getting out of your into the playoffs, finishing second place. So second place is also a realistic target, I think, for a lot of teams.
It's also known as first loser. Just
you know what?
Completely agree.
When Aaron Rodgers' episode of Jeopardy start airing in the fall because he filmed them during training camp and they're still winning the division by 5 games, talk to me then.
That's a good one. I like that one. All right. Answer me this. The most competitive division, perhaps the AFC North, where the Pittsburgh Steelers finished atop the division, followed by the Ravens and the Browns, and the Bengals, who lost their star quarterback, still in the back of the pack. Now, I would say Justin Burrow comes back. That's almost like acquiring another draft pick going into the season, right? Because
I don't know. I think
play a full season.
Yeah. I think it'd be more useful for them if Joe Burrow comes back.
Joe Burrow. What did I say?
Justin Burrow.
Again,
it wasn't Joe.
Is my name Sodi or Jaber? I don't remember.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think there's two situations here in this division for me, which kind of throws it up in the air a little bit. First one, obviously, is if Joe Burrow does come back healthy and playing as well as he looked like he was going to be last year when he did play, that could make a significant difference. Maybe not to win the division. I think they're way off that yet, but they could certainly move out of bottom place. And the other one, of course, is the Steelers, who we kind of have this sneaky feeling, do we, that they may be on the downward slope and a lot of players to replace, so they could slip. So we could see a bit of change here in the North, for sure.
Yeah, the Steelers are not winning this division, period.
No,
that's
I don't think
all
so.
I have to say about them.
Yeah.
I think it's a 2-team race between Baltimore and Cleveland, and the onus here is on Cleveland because, again, this is going to – when we start training camps in August and preseason, this is going to be another season where we talk about the Browns as having one of the deepest talented rosters in the NFL. And can they actually consistently play solid football week in and week out without falling into the news clippings of their own hype and blow games they should win, like the Jets game last year?
I agree with you about the Browns, but I would also say I think there's a big onus on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Can Lamar Jackson regain that MVP form that he clearly did not have last season?
I don't think that is.
Well, I mean, they finished second and in the playoffs with an 11-5 record, so I agree.
Right, and they won a game.
But I would point to the fact that the Bengals are definitely on the up and up. I think we all agree.
Yeah.
The Bengals, while they may be the last place team in the North, even next season, they're not going to be last place with a 4-11 record.
No,
they're going to be much better.
Yeah, I would think at least 3 or 4 more wins. Remember, this is the division that has 38 wins in it this year. Last year, that's the best in the league. It's the winningest, as you Americans like to call it, the winningest division last year. 38 victories.
So even with the Steelers perhaps taking a step back, and that's a perhaps, and the Bengals taking a step up, I think Lamar Jackson will have to play better to at least maintain, if not take the crown in the AFC North. Mm-hmm. That's imperative.
Mm.
Lots of.
I don't think it needs to be MVP level though. That's pretty much what my disagreement with you is.
Fair.
Can he play better than he played last season? Absolutely. But 2,700 passing yards, 26 touchdown passes, still ran for 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Yes, he is basically the entire offense. I think that needs to be spread around more for other people there. And whether that's receivers who can actually get open so he can target them, or offensive line, finding consistency at running back. One of those two things needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
But I don't want to see another 1,000-yard rushing season from Lamar Jackson.
So who's your division winner then?
I'm still picking Baltimore.
I'm probably going to go with Cleveland.
I'll go with Baltimore as well.
All right. So we're crushing. Really, the only dreams we're crushing are those of the defending champion Pittsburgh Steelers. Everybody else, lots of hope to be given out here.
I always mark teams down when Washington slaughters them, and we slaughtered the Steelers last year. And I thought, oh well, this is a team on the decline. If we can slaughter you, yeah.
Neil, most people have the Bengals selecting an offensive tackle in the upcoming draft. Will that be enough for them to get those 3 or 4 more wins?
Well, whether that's enough or not, keeping Burrow standing throughout the whole season will be the key for them, because they did look really good when he played. So if the offensive tackle helps with that, then all the better. I mean, they've got a great selection there. What are they, 5th, Jay, in the draft? The Bengals, and you're talking about at least 3, if not 4 quarterbacks ahead of them. So they may well get the pick of the litter when it comes to the rest of the non-quarterback positions. So do they take one of the great sort of talented wide receivers and an offensive lineman later, or do they take an offensive lineman at the top and then take a wide receiver later? I think they'll probably go for the latter there. It's very difficult to get. You can pick up wide receivers all the way through the draft, but finding a real top quality offensive lineman, that is a bit more scarce in the NFL these days. I know it's not the sexy pick, but I would certainly go offensive lineman.
Moving to the NFC South, the Saints were the division champions last season. Drew Brees retired. Tampa Bay, as you mentioned, a lot easier to get into the playoffs, although they were 11-5. They were a legit playoff contender, and now the champions. The Carolina Panthers appear to have made a change at quarterback, now acquiring Sam Darnold, and the Atlanta Falcons are sticking with Matt Ryan. So how do we look at the South? Because I'm a big believer in the Atlanta Falcons. I just don't know why. I don't have any.
Neither do I.
I don't have any reasons to believe in them.
Are you picking?
Their offense.
The first letter of the alphabet.
I'll put it this way: their offense should be better than what it was. I don't understand why they get these big leads, 28-3, and then give them up. I mean, that's just one of like 1,000 examples. Is it all on the defensive side of the ball? It can't all be on the defensive side of the ball. There's a problem on the offensive side of the ball too. So, you have a new head coach. Let's see what can happen here.
Yeah, I think if I was going into that team, I'd be looking to build on that defense, because it has been a bit of a nightmare for them. What I would say is, you guys might not know this, but the Buccaneers are returning all 22 starters on.
Oh, you don't say.
Super Bowl. That's the first time. That's the first time, James, is in the modern in the salary cap era. So there's a factoid for you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I might have to pencil them in as champions of this division.
Yeah, this is a real tricky one, James, because I could actually make a case for any of these teams winning this division.
Really?
Yeah.
Even the Panthers. I think what Neil's getting at is the history of lack of consistency in this division, and that typically one of the teams that finishes in the bottom wins the division next year.
Yeah, they've got this division has a particular history for that. But you mentioned the Panthers. I could see the Panthers doing something here in this division. I think if they get slightly better play from Darnold, that defense, most of them were very young guys. If they settle in this second season, I like Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, as you guys know, and I don't think they're that far away from winning games. They played Washington last year, and they played really well. Looked really solid all round. Just needed maybe that one or two difference makers to make some extra plays. And they're going to get McCaffrey back, and I like what they're doing as a team. And I could certainly, if you imagine, as I could, the Saints maybe dropping 2 or 3 games over the course of the season, that division all of a sudden becomes really, really narrow. And I'm with you, Jay. I think the Falcons, as long as they have the quarterback there and Ryan, he can make. Imagine if they took Kyle Pitts and added that to the offense, for example. They could really start improving. And of course the Buccaneers we know, and the Saints we always know that Peyton can get an offense together and put points on the board. So it's a really tight one. This one, I really liked this division. I look forward to seeing it play out over the football months.
To me, the question is how far back to the. Well, my question is how far back did the Saints drop without Drew Brees?
Well, yeah, I think you have to be honest and say, as great a player as Drew Brees was in his career, and he was, truly one of the greats, and probably played at a time when they were, you're talking about Brady and Manning in his career. He's very unfortunate in that sense, because if those guys weren't around, he'd be seen probably as the best quarterback of his generation. It's a bit hard on poor old Drew. So I would, but we also know last year that he wasn't the Drew Brees of old. He could barely throw the ball down the field. So maybe they were already not having the greatest quarterback play overall. So maybe they won't drop too many games, but you could certainly see them going from 12-4 down to something in the region of 10 wins, 10-7.
So they're still a playoff team?
I think so. And, James asks who the quarterback is, and I would throw that right back to him. Who does he think the quarterback will be? I still think it will be Jameis Winston.
No. Not from New Orleans. The other team,
sorry.
Carolina.
Well, I think Darnold will be the quarterback to start with.
I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is a quarterback on the Carolina Panthers next season.
No, I think he's gone already, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's such I always feel really sorry for Teddy Bridgewater. I think I've said this before. He's one of those players who is so close to being a really, really good player, but he just seems to be that tiny percentage off, and that's such a shame, because if he was playing on a really great team, he would look really great, I'm sure. It's such a shame.
Well, take the year he played in New Orleans.
Yeah, he's 5-0.
He looked great in New Orleans. Last year, not so much.
Yeah,
and we can blame the fact that he's under a new coach with a new system and no Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, but they still had Mike Davis, who performed fairly well as a running back.
Yeah, I think you've got to be quite honest there with the Panthers and say they're not giving up, the draft picks they gave up to get Darnold, not to see him play at least start the season.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. But
I'm going to take the Buccaneers to win this division.
Unfortunately,
but I'm not going to go out and say like you didn't yell that any of these teams. You wouldn't be surprised by any of these teams. I would be surprised by the Carolina Panthers at the top of this division. But I don't know if I want to crush the Carolina Panthers' hopes and dreams. I don't think there's a crushing in this division. I'm feeling kind of generous to the NFC South.
Only if the Falcons repeat their performance from last year, that would be crushing.
In the AFC South, we have crushing because Houston, we have a problem, and you know what your problem. You know what your problem is, and it begins and ends there, and you're done. So. Houston, you can anybody who's a Houston Texans fan, you have a pass for 2021. Come back in 2022.
Well, let's just
to you.
Well, I would say come back in 2023.
Well, at least you can watch the rebuild occur in 2022.
They've got nothing to rebuild
in 2021.
They have nothing to rebuild with. That's the problem.
That's fair too.
Well, what pick would they've had in the draft this year? No, the fifth or the sixth pick. Oh my God, that must be crushing for them.
They have what we assume is going to be Tyrod Taylor starting at quarterback.
Correct.
David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, and Mark Ingram in their running back room. So already a crowded backfield. Wide receivers of Cooks, Cobb, and QT.
Yeah, made of glass. Okay.
So I'm not, and we ripped their offensive line a lot anyway for when Deshaun Watson was able to play, that they couldn't protect him when it counted most. So offensively, I don't have a lot of faith in this team right now, as far as the ability to put points up. And look, I am a Tyrod Taylor stan. I want this guy to have a career in which he plays multiple seasons for a team and not them using him as a bridge to the next guy. But the situation in Houston does not bode well offensively for him. I mean, it's a good thing that he's mobile, he can scramble and get out the pocket, because he'll be doing a lot of that this season.
Do you think this is the Houston will be the worst team in the NFL next year? And will they win a game?
That's a good question.
Are they the
worst team in the NFL?
Probably not. I want to say no, but they also have a new head coach, which means new coaching staff. The defense didn't perform that well last year. Not to mention they lost J.J. Watt, who was literally the heart and soul of this entire unit. Yeah. I'm looking at the defense, and there's nothing that gives me hope to say the defense can actually win a couple of games for them. I don't see anything here.
I think they're contenders. I don't know if they're the worst. I might
contenders for a top 10 pick.
No, well, definitely. They're contenders for a top 3 pick. I think they're definitely in the conversation for worst team in the league. I think the Jets, unfortunately, are going to be number 1 in that particular regard. But we'll get to the Jets in a moment. How about the Jaguars in this particular division? We know what's happening there. How many wins? How good is Trevor Lawrence going to be for this team?
That's a good question. I mean, they have a running back who arguably had one of the best rookie seasons in the history of the league, especially for a guy who was undrafted. Did make your team, by the way.
Thanks for reminding me about him. That was a good catch.
The receiving core, I have concerns about their health. They did try to solidify the offensive line. And, they made some acquisitions on defense to make it a little bit better. It pretty much all falls on Trevor Lawrence.
But I also think that they can make some moves in the draft. They have draft capital that they can add to that defense. Mm-hmm. So they're definitely not going to be a contender for the worst team in the NFL. They're not going to be the worst team in this division. I just don't know how far we can see Trevor Lawrence. Are we going to see Trevor Lawrence be a Ben Roethlisberger, get to the playoffs in his first year, or is he going to be more like a Justin Herbert?
Oh no,
will have the best statistical year as a rookie, but not get to the playoffs.
I'm not sure Ben Roethlisberger took the Steelers to the playoffs. I think the Steelers took Ben Roethlisberger to the playoffs.
Roethlisberger to the playoffs, exactly. The Steelers were a ready-made team when Ben got there. So
I would be stunned if the Jaguars had more than 3 wins next year.
You'd be stunned?
Absolutely stunned if they had more. If they got to 4 wins, that is a massively successful season for them. They are a roster that is bereft of talent from head to foot. Now, remember,
really?
you're judging Trevor Lawrence playing for one of the top college teams in America. He's going to play now for one of the bottom teams in the pros in America. So that's a huge change for any player, especially at the quarterback position. He's not going to have the time to throw the ball. He's not going to have receivers who are open 5 to 10 yards. That's going to take a huge adjustment. And so I say again, I would be absolutely stunned if they get to 4 wins, and that would be a real success.
I'm not gonna rank the Jaguars' offensive line up there with the likes of the Dallas Cowboys of old, but It's a solid offensive line. It's a top 10 offensive line.
Ooh, top 10.
Top half of the league, maybe? I don't know about top 10.
Top 10. It's 32 teams, Jay. You're saying
that's the top third, by the way. So that's not far from top half of the league. I'm not. You just pulled a Matthew Berry on me, James. Not top 10, but top 8. Yeah, for sure. No, except you went the other way. 8? You went the other way on it. Not top 10, but top 12 for sure.
A little lower. They're middle of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
I think their offensive line, and by the way, I've looked at a lot of these teams' offensive lines for the SuperFan Super Mock Draft. This is a pretty good offensive line in comparison to the rest of the league. I think can it improve? 100%. There's no doubt about it. Cam Robinson as your starting left tackle, you could definitely do better at the left tackle position. Sorry, Cam Robinson.
Well, he was also injured, wasn't he, last year?
But again, Cam Robinson is a solid left tackle that you can't take anything away from. The wide receiver position, you have a very dangerous DJ Chark. You have a promising potential Laviska Shenault. You have a senior wide receiver who can help improve this team right off the bat, Marvin Jones. And you have you got another guy in Philip Dorsett that can help teach these kids how to play the position. Tyler Eifert as your dump-off candidate at tight end. And as James already mentioned, you have the rookie of the year in James Robinson at running back. This team is pretty good.
I would love to visit your planet sometime.
He didn't win it.
Well, he should have won it. Well,
you know that Justin Herbert won Rookie of the Year.
Right. Well, I
mean,
Jay,
surely
quarterback out of the conversation, James Robinson was right there.
What you have to ask yourself when you look at this team is, if you're a defensive coordinator, who on that offense scares you? None of them.
Nobody.
They're all kind of, like you say, Jay, you've gone through a number of players there. They're all good, solid NFL players, but they're also the good, solid NFL players who won one game last year. There's nothing great there. There's nobody like Mike. There's nobody.
So I love the fact that you just asked. I love the fact that you just put it that way, because the guy that's going to scare me is the quarterback coming in. So I'm going to be overconfident and say this quarterback's got nothing on us. He's a rookie. He's going to have a steep learning curve. We're going to throw everything at him, and he's not going to know what to do. But James Robinson is going to be able to run through those quarterback blitzes. He's going to be able to dump that ball off to a very intelligent and seasoned Marvin Jones, and he's going to get a deep pass off to DJ Chark or Laviska Shenault on those go routes, and now you're in trouble because you went in overconfident thinking, this team is nobody on this team scares me. Well, the quarterback should scare you.
Not in his rookie season, he won't. He might do in years two going forward, but it's very rare a rookie quarterback comes in and really scares you.
And mind you, I'm not talking up the Jacksonville Jaguars as
you are
the champion of this particular division.
That's right. So it's like,
but to say that 3 games, if they got more than 3 wins, would surprise you. I'm definitely going to give them more than that. I'm probably going to put them at 7.
7?
Yeah.
You think they're going to go 7-10?
I think so. I mean, I got to look and see what their record is. I got to see who they're playing and
they're not
all that stuff. But I feel pretty good about the Jaguars.
Well, they're playing Oregon, BYU.
Well, let's not forget the Indianapolis Colts have a certain former Eagle at quarterback now too.
Yeah, we're not talking about him yet.
No, we are, because we're talking about the Jaguars.
No. I want to get to this whole wins thing. And I don't know, will they be competitive? Yes, because I'm looking at some games last season, and look, yes, they won week 1 and lost the next 15. They beat the Colts, which we'll get to very shortly. But I'm looking at games like the Texans, they lost 27-25. The Packers, they lost, 28-27, I think it was, 24-20. They were competitive in some of these games. The Browns, 27-25. The Vikings, 27-24. So competitive, yes. Wins? I don't know.
By the way, this is also me not liking Urban Meyer as their head coach.
Well, no one likes Urban Meyer. And not just as their head coach, but no one should like Urban Meyer.
That's going to the front of the show. Yeah. So, and in comparison to Carson Wentz at Indianapolis, all the question marks about Carson Wentz. I mean, which Carson Wentz is there?
Yeah, but look at the rest of the roster. The Indianapolis roster compared to the Jacksonville Jaguars roster, it's night and day.
Who scares you as an Indianapolis Colt player?
Well, Quentin Nelson for a start. Darius Leonard.
Okay, that's an offensive lineman who doesn't score points. So I don't need to get my defense schemed around Quentin Nelson. Darius Leonard, yes.
How about any of the three running backs when healthy between Taylor, Mack, and Hines? They scare me.
Yeah, and you also shouldn't diss probably the best player who's come out of the draft in the last few years.
Listen, I would love Quentin Nelson on my offensive line.
Yeah, he is fantastic. One hell of a player.
But again, as a defensive coordinator, I don't need to scheme my defense around Quentin Nelson.
Well, in a way, you actually do.
Well, in a way, sure, but also in a way, I need to scheme my defense more around that three-headed running back attack that you just mentioned. But in comparison to Jacksonville, so I need to I got Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack versus James Robinson, Carlos Hyde. I don't know who else. I guess it doesn't matter. But
that's.
I mean, it's comparable. I don't think it's night and day.
But I'm looking just generally at the. I'm also looking across the board at the coaching, at the just the overall organization. Indianapolis is a quality organization who has a winning mentality. The Jaguars are an absolute shambles from start to finish. They have been for a number of years now, and we just talked about the head coach, and college head coach who was retired comes into the NFL for the first time. That's a tricky one. I think I will bet you anything you like, Jay, up to at least £5 to say that the Indianapolis Colts will have a better record than the Jacksonville Jaguars by at least 2 games by the end of the season.
By 2 games,
at least, right. Yeah. I mean, look at that defense. I mean, they've got all pro guys like DeForest Buckner. They've got Darius Leonard. I mean, they are high quality, top level players, and I don't see a single high level top player to match those guys on the Jags. And you've got Quentin Nelson on offense. You've got Leonard and Buckner on defense. That's 3 guys who are head and shoulders above anything on that Jaguars roster.
So yeah, I can't make that because you're talking about an 11-5 team versus a 1-15 team. I think the Jaguars are going to move up to 7 wins, which will be absolutely extraordinary. And I think the Colts, for everything that I was just trying to say about Carson Wentz, are ultimately probably going to end up about 10 or 11 wins.
You're backpedaling faster than Deion Sanders.
That is not backpedaling at all. That's just me being realistic. I mean, you're right. The defense of the Colts is good. But back to who scares me, by the way, for as much as I wanted the Colts to re-sign T.Y. Hilton, you're talking about T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal. There's no one on this team that scares me from an offensive point of view. As a defensive coordinator, I'm not staying up late at night worried about the Colts offense.
Well, I would take you back to
Jack Doyle, Ali Cox.
Yeah, I would take you back to catch a pass. I would take you back to January when they played the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, and that was one hell of a game, perhaps the best game of the season last year in the league, and that was 2 very, very, very good teams playing, and for the Colts to hang with the Bills in Buffalo during that game, that I was very impressed by that. I think they're a really good team. Whether they've upgraded the quarterback, Jay, I'm not sure, but I think they'll be thereabouts when it comes to playoff time. For me, they're the division winners.
No, Tennessee is still the division winners. Tennessee, despite the fact that they've jettisoned a lot of players, I still think are in the position to maintain the top of this division. The other thing that we've discovered through this is that over the years, there's not been a division other than the AFC South that has caused this much discourse amongst the super fans. The AFC South is absolutely the most intriguing division out of them all. They come from such different standpoints on them.
I would wonder if they can get a third great season out of Derrick Henry. That would be my only concern with Tennessee. He's a great player, but he's had two years where he's been heavily used, and he's managed to get through them playing fabulously well. I wonder if they'll get a third one, because if he was not to have a good season, maybe miss some games through injury, I think that would knock the stuffing out of the Titans. For me,
well, I think the Titans are definitely going to look at another running back. I know that they took one. Actually, I think they have two from last season, or maybe only one, and Darrington Evans. But I think they're going to be looking in that position again in the later rounds. So I think they'll be able to find somebody to complement Derrick Henry. You're right; they can't put the entire load on Derrick Henry. That would be very bad.
Well, I need another receiver to step up besides A.J. Brown.
Well, they did just acquire Josh Reynolds, and I think the draft is again a place that they're going to have to address that particular position.
Okay, come on. We're just putting this off till we get to the NFC East. Can we get to the NFC East soon?
All right, so we're at the NFC East.
All right. Oh, excellent. Right. Okay. So my division picks Philadelphia, but number you, Jay? What do you think?
Washington is number one.
Yes.
In this particular division as of now. And you have to look at what the other teams have done and say, Washington's got to drop back, man.
Hey, no.
You have that quarterback that's going to be better than what the other teams have this season, Neil.
Well, what I would say is we won the division with very, very poor quarterback play last year, and I think we'll win the division with average quarterback play this year.
How are you guys not on the phone right now talking to Teddy Bridgewater?
Because we've got Fitzpatrick, and I think we'll bring in a rookie. Look out for David Mills in the second round. That seems to be the buzz at the moment. Stanford quarterback. I don't see huge strides made by anybody in this division. If anybody's made huge strides, I would say it's probably the Giants, who have made the most strides forward. But Washington's defense is going to be as good, if not better, than it was last year. And offensively, we will be better. We've got Curtis Samuel in there to improve. And okay, we might be a game or two better off, but it's going to be another year, isn't it, where you've got a very low win record to win this division. 9 wins will likely win this division next year.
I forgot about the Ryan Fitzpatrick signing. I actually kind of do like I love your defense. I loved your defense last season.
And it's improved. We brought in William Jackson as an upgrade at cornerback. So it's, I also love our defense, and I think it's going to be better. And I just don't, even if we only improve slightly, I just don't see any other team who's really improved more than us. So that would suggest that we're going to win the division. I'm fearful of a breakout season for Jalen Reagor, but other than that, I'm cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, Eagle fan, you're being oddly quiet over there.
Oddly quiet. I am not one to shy away from hyping my team when deservedly so. There's no deserving of talking about my team right now. So why would I say anything about the Philadelphia Eagles except break out the tissues, fans, and prepare for a lot of pain.
Did you read this long form article on the Eagles that was out recently? Did you see this, James? With lots of talk about your owner being involved really in the day-to-day stuff, almost to the Dan Snyder level of involvement in the team and the battle between.
Sounds like something Jerry Jones would do.
Yeah, and the battle between analytics and the coaches and stuff, and it didn't sound healthy at all in that sort of behind the scenes sort of front office kind of business. And I don't say that with any joy.
Look, in all seriousness, with the Eagles, we have what we expect to be a healthy offensive line. Brandon Brooks, we lost last year in the offseason. Around this time last year, it was noted that he had ruptured his Achilles and was going to miss the entire season. So he'll be back. Lane Johnson pretty much had who knows what the litany of injuries in his lower legs from shin to ankle to knee. He's coming back. Hopefully Dillard or Mailata steps in for Jason Peters, who's not coming back at left tackle. And look, the offensive and defensive lines is probably the bright spots of this team right now. That's all I have. And if the offensive line is healthy for the entire year, it can play up to the level of consistency that it has over the last couple of seasons. I expect some decent, if not huge, production levels from Miles Sanders.
It's for me, James. It's a huge season for Andre Dillard because he came out of that draft where you traded up to get him as like
to get him right,
a really great, and he's shown nothing, has he? Injuries,
because he was supposed to be the starter last year.
Yeah,
and they weren't convinced that he was going to be the guy, which is part of the reason they brought back Jason Peters.
But we better get off the offensive line because we know how much Jay hates the offensive line.
I'm sorry. That's all I got for the squad right now because the defensive line returns the main four and Barnett, Hargrave, Cox, and Graham. And after that, I got nothing on this defense.
I was, even though he's an Eagle, I've always loved Fletcher Cox. You know that, but I didn't see the Fletcher Cox last year.
I think he got a back injury, I want to say early in the year, and pretty much just wasn't the same guy for the majority of the season because he was nursing that. He was coming out on key third down plays to where it's like, if he was in there, this team wouldn't have converted that third and short, or the quarterback would have had been forced out the pocket from pressure up the middle. But
I mean, he probably needs more massages, to really sort of stiffen up that defensive line.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, your offensive line is fine, except you have two big question marks in your returning players from injury. Are they going to be able to regain their form? I mean, you would hope so, but they're also older. And usually older players coming back from significant year-long injuries, it's not something you can rely on. You sort of breezed over the Giants. And yes, they did score a pathetic 280 points in total last season. But they do return Saquon Barkley. They do add Kyle Rudolph, a nice big red zone threat. They do add Kenny Golladay, another wide receiver, probably a better wide receiving option than what Daniel Jones had previous. And their defense, for as maligned as it is, actually didn't play all that poorly. So the Giants here are I think the Giants here are in a position to really contend for the title of the top spot in this division.
Yeah, so much of it depends on Jones, doesn't it? I mean, can he hold on to the ball long enough for them to win? That's going to be the key for them. And I still worry the Giants' pass rush maybe needs bolstering.
That's not my second question, but staying on the offensive side of the ball, does the offensive line maintain the consistent play? Because I look at the Giants last year, and a lot of the times that Daniel Jones was hit because he was doing something that a former Eagle quarterback was doing, holding the ball too long. And it wasn't like Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton weren't getting open. I'd see them open on every other pass play that they ran last year. But yeah, Daniel Jones and that offensive line are my two big questions for this team. Defense, I'm not worried about them. They'll bounce back, especially with all the talent they've acquired. I mean, secondary of James Bradbury, Peppers, Ryan, and Adoree Jackson, I mean, much better than what they had last year. I'm actually kind of worried.
And what about Dallas? I mean, Dallas doesn't do a lot, but they do add Dak Prescott, who's going to be a big upgrade at the quarterback position for that team.
Well, of course, but let me see. What's the number here? 473 points allowed on defense. Can they stop anybody, Jay?
Yeah, that's the big one.
Trick question.
No, but if they score 450 points, they can win more than 6 games.
Look,
personally, I don't see it.
Between Smith and Van Der Esch, these guys need help.
I just don't see the Cowboys doing much there in that division, really. Okay, they'll score a lot of points, but at the end of the day, their offensive line is a shambles at the moment, and defensively, they're all over the place.
To me, this is the division that I wouldn't be surprised if any of them end up winning it.
Oh, I can't see the Eagles winning it. That's the only team. Nothing against. Sorry, James. I don't mean to upset you, but
no, trust me, I don't see my team winning the division.
Yeah, I just can't see the Eagles doing anything.
Look, I'll be happy with another 6-win season. Oh, sorry, I didn't win 6 games last year.
I just can't put a case for the Eagles. I can't see anything. I can put a case, like you say, Jay. I can put a case for the other teams to win this division, this particular division, but I just can't make a case for the Eagles.
I don't know what this offense is supposed to look like with the new coaching staff.
Yeah,
or the defense for that matter.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's why I fell back to the two lines, offense and defense. That's all I have open right now. They play well, maybe.
I think one thing we don't put a lot of stall into in terms of making our rankings is the stability in the front office and the continuity between the front office and the coaching staff. That makes a huge difference in the sport. We don't often speak about it, but I think we know there's problems there in Philadelphia, and that will manifest itself on the field at some point. It's been one of the
word you're looking for is circus. Circus is the word you're looking for.
It's blighted my team for decades, and I see similar things happening there in Philadelphia, and that will impact the team. Look at the teams who do well. Look at the Chiefs. You can say, okay, it's Mahomes, it's Hill, it's whatever. It really isn't, or not to a huge extent. It's all about Andy Reid, the way he works with the front office, that whole everybody working from the same page. That is hugely important in the sport. Where teams are talent-wise, fairly similar, it's that can make a huge difference, and the Eagles just don't have that.
The AFC. So I'm not crushing anyone's dreams in the NFC East. I hear what you guys are saying about the Eagles, but I do think that the Eagles could surprise, and I'll put a lot of that on the quarterback.
Could surprise in what way?
The surprise and win.
What?
Yeah.
Jay,
I am not the Eagles super fan, but but I, as an outsider looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, I hear everything that you guys just said about the Eagles, and I accept everything that you just said. But I also didn't hear much talk about Jalen Hurts and the fact that the kid can play. The kid has shown
that's why I didn't talk about him, because I know he can play. The problem is that we have Jalen Reagor and not Justin Jefferson.
But
James, I think the one thing we've learned.
You're going to add a Jamar Chase or a Devontae Smith or a Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, that sounds right, because wide receivers make a huge difference.
I would like to think so, but maybe Howie Roseman has screwed up again this year.
That's right. I would say, James, you must agree with me here. I'm sure you do. That let's be fair. This has not been Jay's strongest podcast for a long time, has it? I mean, he's, he mentioned at the start of the show about filler, and I kind of feel like has he even reached the level of filler in this episode?
One more division.
I'm kind of lazy, actually.
One more
exactly.
One more division, and there was one team that scored even more pathetic than 280 points. It was only at 243 points.
The so-called plan, and I use plan very loosely, came out very late for this show too, James. Did you notice that?
Poor work
ethic. The New York Jets finished last season.
That's right,
2-14.
Yeah, and physical traits. I'm not sure either, James. I'm saying undrafted free agent at best.
Their quarterbacks now that they got rid of Sam Darnold are James Morgan and Mike White, but they are picking number 2, so they will probably end up with Zach Wilson. That's who is most likely reported to be the target there for the New York Jets.
What if it's Justin Fields?
Even if it's Justin Fields, it's even worse. But if it's Zach Wilson, it's just bad. There's nothing.
So basically, any quarterback not named Trevor Lawrence is just bad regardless.
I think if Trevor Lawrence were put on the New York Jets, he wouldn't do very well. He's definitely. I don't think that there is any situation. You want to talk about being surprised? I will be surprised if the Jets can improve on their 2-14 record next season. I will be supremely surprised. They just You talk about scaring Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder. Not scary. Mm-hmm. The running backs, they're running with LaMichael Pirine as their lead back. Maybe Tevin Coleman. Mm-hmm. But I, as our lads has Tevin Coleman as the change of pace back. They have nothing. This is why last week I was saying, Jets, do yourself a favor and go get yourself Richard Sherman so you at least can do something on defense. Because right now
the Salah effect? Anything there, Jay?
What about Robert Saleh? Listen, I like Robert Saleh, but he's a rookie head coach, and he's got to change the entire culture. He's got to convince Marcus May, who they tagged. I don't know why they didn't just let poor Marcus May go, but now they got to convince Marcus May to play. And Marcus May was not thrilled with the fact that Sam Darnold got traded away. I mean, I don't see good things for this team. I haven't heard anything positive about this team, and I can't see anything positive about this team. And that's not me with Patriot blinders on. That's just the fact about the Jets. They're terrible.
I mean, best case scenario, roster overhauls take 2 to 3 years. Best case scenario.
I still see them as a better than the Jags, but I don't think much better.
No. I will take the Jags roster over the Jets roster any day. You want to put any wager on that one? I'll definitely take that one. That's an easy wager to take.
Well, you can't really do a wager on that one because there's no way to know.
That's true.
But how would you? Would you do that before the quarterback selections in this month's draft? Are you saying right now you would take the roster over the Jags, or are you thinking about saying that once they've got Trevor?
No, I would take the Jags roster right now over the Jets roster right now.
Yeah, only because they still have Gardner Minshew.
I thought the Jets played better than the roster demonstrated last year.
When?
Well, when that crazy game against the Raiders was that when they lost. That was a game they threw away on purpose. I'm almost certain of that. But I thought they played pretty well. Didn't they beat the Patriots, or did they have 2 close games against the Patriots?
They had a close game against the Patriots, where the Patriots did everything they could to throw it away to the Jets, and the Jets said, no, we really don't want this one.
They beat the Rams and the Browns last year.
Yeah, that's right. They beat the Rams. Yeah, that's right. So, like we said before, the talent levels of NFL teams is not a huge, really, discrepancy between the rosters, really, in terms of talent. It's how they're played. Yeah, the Jets are not going to be a great team. They're nowhere anywhere close to winning this division. But I certainly, I'd probably have them maybe second or third bottom of the league altogether.
They are at the bottom. Bottom.
I mean, but let's face it. If we're arguing over who's bottom, the Jets or the Jaguars, I think we can both agree that both teams are pretty poor.
They're definitely in the bottom 3.
Yeah, they're going to be. If you put the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Jets, I mean, they're still going to be 3 of the worst teams in the league, I think, next year.
There you go. Now the Dolphins. We're just going to assume that the Bills are the division champions. They're going to remain the division champions here, but the Dolphins are definitely the team that's going to put up the biggest fight, I think, for this particular season at the very least.
I don't know who's the backup in Miami now that they did not.
Jacoby Brissett.
Patrick.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Your mind, Brissett.
So can they handle another season like last year where Tua struggles and they put in the backup as a starter for a few weeks at a time?
No, you're not doing that. Tua is your starter every single game. You pull Tua this season, Tua is done. He's no longer a starting quarterback.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
You could get away with that last season.
You're saying we leave him in and make him finish it.
Yeah. You could get away with that. You could get away with that last season because he was a rookie. And you had a veteran quarterback of the likes of Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has a long track record of, wins and more losses. But I think I don't think you can get away with doing that with Jacoby Brissett. If Jacoby Brissett takes over the starting role, he's the starter the rest of the season.
It's a massive, every player. It's a massive season for every player every year, but it really stands out for Tua, doesn't it, this year? This is the one he's got to do it this year, or else, like you say, Jay, his ability to start will be questioned. So, massive. And certainly the one good thing is, though, it appears that the organization are right behind him. And that's a good sign. They let Fitzpatrick go. They didn't keep him. That's a good sign for Tua. Mm-hmm. They traded back, and then they traded back up again, but obviously out of the quarterback stakes. That's a really good sign for them as well. And that will certainly help. I really like their head coach. He's one of your ex-guys, isn't he, Jay?
Yes,
I think the organization is getting run in a pretty good way now. I like that.
I mean, Tua also has weapons around him. I think he's got a good wide receiving core. He's got a good running back core.
Mm-hmm. Offensive line's all right.
The offensive line is okay. I would take the Jaguars' offensive line over the Dolphins' offensive line.
He's never going to let that go.
But I think the Dolphins on defense are fairly solid. They are maybe a top 10 defense. They finished last year as a top 10 defense, didn't they?
And you were talking about the draft before, weren't they? And they've got 2 first-round picks in the draft.
They have a couple. They have a couple picks. Yes.
Yeah, they have good selections in the draft as well. They could at number 6. They could get one of the top wide receivers. Maybe even if they're lucky, Kyle Pitts fell to them. That sort of thing. If not, take one of the offensive linemen. Very good. Very good.
And so I suppose that brings us to New England.
So Buffalo, I think Buffalo are in for a really good season. And that closes out the East. So which one now is it?
Good. You don't want me to crap all over my team? You didn't want to hear that?
I find it hard to hear that, Jay, because I can hear tears in your eyes and you're a bit, a frog in your throat, toad in the hole. It's all not great.
The biggest problem with this team is the quarterback position, and the fact that this team did nothing leads me to believe that the plan had something to do with Deshaun Watson. And it may not have been Deshaun Watson to the Patriots, but the fact that Deshaun Watson got into the trouble that he got into caused a problem for the Patriots to do whatever it is that they had planned at the quarterback. Wow. There are a lot of good pieces here, but this wide receiving core is still terrible. I'll take the Jaguars wide receiving core over this one.
I tell you, these Jaguars, they're heading to the playoffs at this point.
I'll tell you this. I'll take this offensive line over anybody's offensive line. This might be the best offensive line in the league.
I don't think you'll be as bad as you're kind of aiming here, Jay. I understand your quarterback position concerns and your wide receiver concerns. I totally get that, and I completely agree. What I would say is, it will be Newton's. He should hopefully get a proper preseason and the whole summer in that offense to sort of learn it. So he should be better, and maybe not much better, but better a little bit. And I think generally Belichick can cobble together a pretty reasonable defense. With limited talent, he's good at doing that. He always has done. So
they acquire some big defense in free agency.
Yeah, I can see you being like a what was it, 8 and 9, 9 and 8, that sort of level this year.
Well, you brought up the preseason, so I'll go here real quick. The Adam Schefter tweeted out a memo from the National Football League on the summary of the off-season program. 9 weeks in length, voluntary, except for one mandatory minicamp. The first phase is for 4 weeks, April 19th to May 14th. This is the phase that most of these teams that we've been hearing that are going to ban the voluntary camp. I guess I don't know how they're putting it. This is the portion that they will not be attending in person. This
is all virtual. The phase 1 is strictly virtual.
Will be all virtual. The second phase is 1 week, May 17th to May 21st. Again, this will be virtual meetings, on-field drills with coaches per CBA rules, no contact, and a teaching pace. The third phase will be 4 weeks of May 24th to June 18th. Traditional OTAs, 10 days, full speed but no contact, in-person or virtual meetings, and includes that one mandatory mini camp. So I guess we probably won't see players actually on the field until that particular period. Payment per CBA and individual player contracts for workout bonuses will occur. COVID protocols as negotiated with the NFLPA with following enhancements: daily testing, with what does it say? With the MESA test, staff vaccination protocols, which were also reported on this week, and other regular season protocols will be put in place. So I don't know about the preseason. I think the preseason is still up in the air and in question. But the fact that they'll have one mandatory mini camp where we'll see players on the field does lead me to believe that we could get a preseason in here.
But even if they don't actually get what we used to get on the field, he's in the building. He's working with the coaches from from moment one. So that should help Newton a fair bit. Plus, he'll have had the whole off season to get used to the offense and so on. And
to hear how terrible he is, because I'm sure he's listening to every single bit of criticism thrown his way.
Yeah, but you don't forget, Jay. I mean, you don't get a season where you're the league MVP if you can't play. So I think the guy can play. He's not the player he was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, sure, but he knows how to play the game and how to prepare for games. So I think you're probably being a little bit harsh to him here, but and I'm not expecting him to be MVP or anything this year, but I think he will be better than last year. And remember, what did you finish last year? We finished
7-9.
Yeah, so I could easily see you getting a couple more wins and getting a wild card. Why not?
No, this is not a playoff team with Cam Newton at quarterback.
Well,
this is not a playoff, and mind you, this is not a playoff team with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback either.
But you're only needing 7 playoff spots and 4 from 4 divisions, so you've got 3 wild cards, haven't you? I mean, there's always a chance, and Belichick can put together a reasonable team that can grind out wins. So it might not be pretty, but I can certainly see you being in the hunt for one of the final wildcard spots. But then again, I would also say I don't see you going very far in the playoffs, but I think you can get up there.
Well, and don't forget, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars winning the Super Bowl next year, so it's going to be tough to get that extra. Extra playoff spot.
That's the problem when you get the playoff spot and then your first round you meet the Jags, then that's it, over.
It really is. But I would also say this. I think the Chargers are in line to get a playoff spot in this division or in this conference. The Dolphins are in line to get a playoff spot in this conference. I don't see a playoff spot for the Patriots. I don't see the Patriots competing with those two teams.
Yeah, but just remember,
I think the Chargers are will be in a better spot than the Patriots.
Yeah, but then
for sure,
you have to remember, Jay. History would suggest that both the Chargers and the Dolphins tend to crap the bed when it comes to the key moments. That's a historical thing with both of them, and the Patriots generally don't. So, that's important. These teams psychologically they've got to get over years of disappointment and defeat and misery and all the rest of it. Whereas you guys, the Patriots have nothing else. The Patriots know how to win games. They count.
So for all of the stuff you guys threw at me as I was trying to transition into the AFC East, this turned out to be a pretty good show.
Yeah, I thought James and I really were brilliant.
Hey, you carried it for sure.
James certainly put in a surprisingly good performance going on previous performances.
Nextfanup@gmail.com is our email. Next fan up.
I kind of see James as a sort of like a Jaguars offensive line. Shows promise occasionally. No. has the odd terrible performance, but everybody kind of quite likes and goes back to it in the end. So yeah.
I'm telling you right now, if it wasn't for the fact that the SuperFan Super Mock Draft is next week and then the following week is the draft, I would give you a full breakdown of the offensive lines in the NFL in the next show. But that cannot happen, unfortunately.
Stop terrifying the listeners.
I'm telling you, you know what? I happen to know a former offensive lineman, perhaps that former offensive lineman needs to be reached out to for after the draft to discuss this, because I'm going to hold steady on the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line.
Okay.
Top 10, baby.
Okay.
All they have to do is finish 10th. They're still top 10.
Yeah. Remember last year?
I still don't see how you have the Chargers in the AFC playoff picture with 2 teams from the North, 2 teams from the South, most likely 2 teams from the East.
It's great offensive line, I think, James. That's what it goes down to.
I did put the Chargers in the playoff picture. I did. I vaulted them over the Raiders.
Yeah.
I put them squarely in the playoff picture, the playoff hunt. And
I'm 100% with you there, Jay. That's for sure. I think you're right.
So you're putting them in over the Dolphins, is what you're saying?
No, I think the Dolphins are right. Here are the teams that did not make the playoffs in the AFC that I feel are playoff contenders for this season: the Miami Dolphins, the Los Angeles Chargers, and those are the 2 teams in the AFC that did not make the playoffs last season that are in the playoff hunt this year.
Okay,
they have hopes and dreams to make the postseason. Which teams made it? Could miss.
Pittsburgh.
Well, I was going to say I'm going to give you the Steelers. I'm going to give you, frankly, I'll give you all the teams in the AFC North as a possibility of missing out. Obviously, one of them will make it, but any one of the 3, I would not be surprised if they miss. I'll give you the Colts. The Colts as a potential miss.
Really, with that defense?
Yep. I'm still going to put the Colts as a team that's not quite
wins, isn't it?
Not quite ready to take the entire conference.
Yeah, and, it's difficult. You can't argue with your 2 picks there. Anybody, I think, could easily make a case for the Chargers and the. So who was the other team you mentioned? The Chargers and the Dolphins for being in and around the playoff hunt. No question. That's fair, Jay. I think. Really,
right now it's the pretend Raider superfan who's screaming at his iPod right now, going, "I cannot believe you're giving my team no respect."
Well, I think the Raiders have to earn that respect, and I think last year was a disappointment. And you've got to be disappointed with the roster building last year. I didn't like it at all. After a good year the previous year. But, yeah.
I would say in the NFC, my hot take in the NFC is all 4 teams in the NFC West could make the playoffs.
No.
Well, that's my hot take.
Okay.
I can see any of the NFC West teams being playoff contenders.
Well, yeah, contenders, yes, but all 4 teams in the playoffs?
Yeah, and then making the playoffs.
No. I think there's a. Yeah, I mean, I would say my whole take would be I think I can certainly see 3 teams from the AFC East making the playoffs.
The East?
I think so. Yeah.
Wow. That's hotter than mine. Come on.
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna go big. That's what I always say.
NFU podcast to tweet us, facebook.com/NFU podcast. Excuse me.
All right, Jay.
I'm getting there.
I mean, it's quite possible.
I'm still crying over the Patriots being terrible.
I see. I thought the drugs were wearing off.
Look, I don't begrudge Neil's pick in the fact that, I mean, there's only one team coming out of the North in the NFC. So,
yep, that's true. Yep.
So get in touch with us. Tell us what you think. And then, like I said, next week, the SuperFan Super Mock Draft.
Are you all right? You sound like you're about to pass out.
I'm fine.
What did we say?
I'm fine. SuperFan Super Mock Draft is next week. So that would be a fun episode.
Have you got a masseuse in there with you?
No.
Good. Because that would be disgusting, honestly. Oh, you're live on a podcast. Jeez, I can smell lavender oil.
Oh gosh!
No. I can't even finish the show. What is happening here?
Jay, this is all your fault.
Oh, really?
Your fault, Jay.
I started it at the very beginning.
Come on, Jay, stiffen your resolve.
Try to finish it. There you have it. There's it. Done. Go home. Get out of here.
It's almost like there's no football to talk about, isn't it?
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.